Good morning, I'm Dan Spieler. President Joe Biden hitting the road to sell his infrastructure plan after speaking to the nation Wednesday night. We'll hear from Indiana lawmakers coming up, but first, Washington correspondent Anna Wernicke with a recap of the president's speech marking his first 100 days in office.
Good to be back.
In his first joint address to Congress and on the eve of his 100th day in office, President Joe Biden says America is on the move again.
Americans always get up. Today, that's what we're doing. America's rising anew.
The president called his administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic a success.
After I promised we'd get 100 million COVID-19 vaccine shots into people's arms in 100 days, we will have provided over 220 million COVID shots in those 100 days.
And laid out his priorities for the next 100 days.
We have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways. A chance to deliver real equity. Good jobs, good schools, affordable housing.
But in order to move his agenda forward, the president will need the support of Republicans.
We need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns.
This was the pitch. You just heard it again. But our nation is starving for more than empty platitudes.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott delivered the Republicans' rebuttal, criticizing the president for not focusing enough on the issues he says Americans care about.
Policies and progress that brings us closer together. But 3 months in, the actions of the president and his party are pulling us further and further apart.
And that was Anna Wernicke reporting. This morning, we have reaction from Indiana's congressional delegation. Some of them were there in attendance Wednesday night. Many of them, because of health protocols, were not. But they all have a lot to say about the president's speech and his massive new infrastructure plan.
There's broad agreement amongst the parties that we have an infrastructure deficit as it relates to roads, bridges, broadband, and other traditional infrastructure. Even mass transit in our cities are in disrepair in many areas. But what we don't agree on is pushing forward with this bill, because a lot of it's about climate. A lot of it's about Green New Deal type programs, electric cars, other what I'll say is non-infrastructure related issues. So I'm disappointed by that. I'm also disappointed by the fact the president thinks that raising the corporate tax rate to a non-competitive rate, which will result in jobs offshoring, people losing their jobs, is in the bill as a way to pay for this, because we know it won't pay for it.
If somebody really wants to work on bipartisan solution, you would get to the table people from both parties. He hasn't even met with the leadership in the House of the Republican Party, not talking about everyone else. So I think what kind of bipartisanship it is. I haven't seen any actions except in his last sentence, but it's all just empty talking points. So hopefully I'll be surprised, but I haven't seen, except few issues maybe on foreign policies. Everything else was very radical and very, catering to very progressive radicals in his party.
We're embarking on a very important infrastructure bill that will create millions of jobs over the next 10 to 15 years. And under Joe Biden's leadership, I think we're going to finally get it done. He wants to have over 200,000 electric vehicle stations across our country in the next 5 years. We're going to repair over the 40,000 roads and bridges that have to be repaved and restructured. And this is a job creator. We're going to start, as cars and vehicles are getting smarter, our roads have to get smarter. So this infrastructure bill is not only going to do a lot for Indiana, it's going to do a lot for our country. And I think that these things are finally attainable after weathering the storm and the debacle of the Trump administration. We are finally at a place where we have a president who's ready to get down to work and do what's right for Hoosiers.
Congressman Carson speaking there at a virtual watch party for Indiana Democrats. Wednesday night, we also heard from Indiana Senator Todd Young.
Massive, sweeping initiatives that have long been wish list items for the left. I was part of a group of 10 Republican senators who tried to get to a place of unity on the president's COVID-19 relief proposal. He invited us to the Oval Office. He listened. He asked questions, but ultimately he did not budge. What we got instead was a $1.9 trillion package that was 90% filled with items unrelated to COVID relief.
All right, and also this week I spoke with Indiana Senator Mike Braun about the president's first 100 days, and I got his take on the president's massive infrastructure proposal.
Well, I think he's been on a fairly consistent theme of wanting to unite America, to bring us together in some fashion. And we all know that over the little over 2 years I've been here, there's a big divide on how we need to solve the big problems of the day. Sadly, with the overture, I was over there for supply chain issues, and many Republicans have been there. And Dan, what I see is the kind of welcome to discussions. Haven't seen any of it put into play when it comes to incorporating anything we might be interested in. To me, that's kind of a false invitation to be part of a joint solution. So the COVID relief package, less than 10% aimed at COVID relief. We were interested in that, especially maybe even doing a little more, but not the balance of what was not pertinent to the title of the discussion. Infrastructure would be the same way.
As he hits 100 days, polls have shown a majority do approve of his handling of the pandemic. The infrastructure bill, at least so far, also has been polling fairly well. Do you think there's room for compromise on the infrastructure bill as it's laid out right now?
Let me tell you why I think that is the case in terms of the high poll numbers. You cannot go wrong talking about trying to put COVID-19 in the rearview mirror. You're going to get large buy-in to it, but you got to get into the details. Only 10% of that nearly $2 trillion, every penny that we borrowed, it's not offset from anything else. Infrastructure, in my opinion, defending our country at the federal level, infrastructure, maybe having a entitlement system that's going to be there for those that depend upon it. You're going to win always on the polling. You need to poll too and say, would you be for all that if you knew you were putting it on the tab, kids and grandkids paying for it? Probably wouldn't poll quite as well.
All right, part of my interview there with Senator Mike Braun. Another proposal from the president this week, the American Families Plan, involves free preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds across the country. It's something we discussed this week with early learning experts here in Indiana and with the chair of the House Education Committee, who says he's somewhat skeptical of the plan.
I'm concerned about quality. I mean, I understand what the federal proposal is. We'll see what ends up coming out in the end. Nothing is free in life, let's face it. You know, somebody's paying for it at some level.
You can see more of that interview and what early learning experts are telling us about the president's proposal on our website. Well, coming up this Sunday in Focus, we'll see what the polls are saying about the president's speech and what Americans thought about his remarks and policy proposals. But up next, Governor Holcomb filing a lawsuit over a bill that could take away some of his emergency powers. We'll have the latest from the State House next.